Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Network 27. I'm Alderman Walter Burnett, Alderman of the 27th Ward. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank everyone who helped us to put the show together. Network 27 come on every month. We also do a podcast from our email blast. If you need more information about our email blast, you can get it on your email. You just call our office at 312-432-1995 and talk to Tamara. She'll hook you up. Ladies and gentlemen, we had some things that happened in our ward and on the west side of Chicago. Something that has happened before. Unfortunately, we had some fentanyl overdoses on the west side of Chicago and throughout the city. And unfortunately, some folks have lost their lives. A lot of folks were saved, thank God. And I think they got to the bottom of it and got it off the street. But from those incidents, a lot of people were concerned. Congressman Danny Davis and State Representative LaShawn Ford had a meeting here on the west side that I attended, and several other advocates who are concerned about overdoses in our community. And they had a meeting here at the Salvation Army here in our ward over on the 800 block of Christiana. And at the Salvation Army, we had a group of folks here, and we talked about how to deal with overdoses, how to stop overdoses, but also how to utilize the resources that are in the community to help people to prevent overdoses, but also to prevent them from getting high off of drugs, and if they want to stop getting high, how to stop getting high. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I have three great guests here today. Each of them at this meeting gave some great, strong, profound testimonies about what they're doing in the community to help with the situation. We're so blessed to have some resources in our community, and I just want the community to know that we have resources in our community to help our loved ones so that they don't lose their lives. We have with us Suzanne Sellers. Suzanne Sellers.
Yes.
And Suzanne is the founder and executive director of Families Organized for Child Welfare Justice.
Yes, thank you.
And Suzanne and her organization deals with families who have been addicted to drugs, and she helps the whole family.
Absolutely.
Because it takes a village to raise a family, right?
Thank you.
And also we have one of my good friends, the major for the Salvation Army here on the 800 block of Christiana, Major Powers. Her and her husband are both majors. They are a duo team who help people. They have a recovery place here at the Salvation Army to help folks to get off of drugs and alcohol, and we appreciate all of her support. Matter of fact, once a month we have our Clean and Sober Stepper set here to allow for folks who have been on drugs and alcohol opportunity to have a good time without getting drunk or high, right? And get high off of dancing in life, right? So we want to thank her for joining us and allowing us to use her facility. And also we have Dr. Huggett, Dr. Huggett, and Dr. Huggett is a doctor from the west side, on the west side, who deals with a lot of shelters on the west side, who helps a lot of people who are dealing with drug overdoses and challenges with drugs and alcohol throughout our community. He also worked with the Lawndale Christian organization, who also have free clinics in our community, one at Breakthrough Ministry and one also in the Lawndale community, who's here to help our folks. But the doctor has some fantastic statistics to talk about the situation that's going on in our community, and his testimony was so profound to myself and everyone that was there. It really brought a lot of things to light. Doctor, I know normally we do ladies first, but because you brought these beautiful boards and you have all of these statistics, can you just tell us what you told everyone at that meeting that we had?
Well, sure, Alderman, and thanks for inviting me and inviting us really to shed light on some of the issues that are happening on the west side and in the 27th Ward in particular. And maybe what I could do is just spend a little bit of time to kind of put it into perspective a little bit of what's been going on with this current epidemic of overdoses and deaths from overdoses due to opioids. So I'd like to just show a few slides if I could. And what I'd like to show on this first slide is really that we're dealing with the epidemic of deaths due to overdoses. Now you can kind of see in the graph that our epidemic in the 1990s was from HIV. You can see how it was going up and then has kind of come down once we have medicine. But now with this dark solid line, you can really see how the drug overdoses has really become an epidemic. And it's really the epidemic of our time. It's really something that we have to pay attention to. What we know is in 2017, 72,000 people in the United States died of overdoses, 72,000. And roughly 3/4 of them were from opioid overdoses. Now people always ask, well, what's an opioid? And an opioid includes things like heroin. It includes things like synthetics, like fentanyl. It also includes pills like oxycodone or Norco or hydrocodone or things like that. That's really what an opioid is, and what we're really seeing is overdose deaths due to that. And 72,000 is a lot of deaths, and really drug overdoses is really the leading cause of death for Americans under the age of 50. And because it's become such a big problem, our life expectancy has actually decreased. So it's really been affecting us here in the United States quite a bit. What I'd like to do in this next slide is kind of get to a little bit more local and see what's happening in Chicago, and especially on the west side. In Chicago in 2017, 796 people died of opioid overdoses. And you can see from the map of Chicago on the left-hand side of the slide is how greatly affected the west side has been. Every dot on that slide really signifies a person who has died of an opioid overdose. These are very good statistics because these are from the medical examiner's office, so we know exactly what they've had an autopsy and we know exactly what they have died from. So these are, and you can see the slide, the photo on the right-hand side is really seeing how that number of deaths has really increased in Illinois and in Chicago. And the death rate has really increased quite a bit. So it really has been affecting us in our West Side communities. The next slide really is showing, we're kind of really seeing what's happening on even closer on the West Side and in the 27th Ward. And as you mentioned in your introduction, we were very concerned about a very small period of time at the end of April this year in an area just very close to where we are right now at the intersection of Chicago and Homan, where there were more than 20 overdoses and 4 people died in a home in just one morning. So that really is of concern. What this slide is really showing is what they call a hotspot map. Where those orange or red areas are concentrations of where the overdoses actually happened. And this is in the Police District 11. So this is from those data. These data are coming from the Chicago Crime Lab at the University of Chicago, and they are collecting data from the Chicago Fire Department when the ambulances go out to see people with overdoses, and also the police department because they also help to bring people back from overdoses. So you can see there are 3 right at the top of the slide up and down Chicago Avenue at Chicago and Homan, Chicago and Hamlin, and a little bit further west of Hamlin, Chicago and Central Park perhaps. Those are heavy concentrations of overdoses. Now these are not all overdose deaths. Some of these, they survived their overdoses, but some of them they did not. You can see where other large concentration is at Madison and Kedzie, just down the street from where we are right now. But the largest concentration in the District 11 of the Chicago Police is really at Pulaski and Madison. These data are really from the first 3 months of 2019, and just in those first 3 months, there were 80 overdoses in Pulaski at Madison, 80 overdoses. So that is really a large concentration in just 3 months. The total overdose just for those first 3 months of 2019 were 226 overdoses just here in this police district. So this is really hitting home for us. The other dots are kind of where our team at Lawndale Christian Health Center helps to serve people. As you say, one of our sites is at Breakthrough at Kedzie and Carroll. So that's where I see patients. And I also, as you mentioned, also see patients in some of our homeless shelters, including Breakthrough Men's at 402 North St. Louis, and also at Walls Shelter at 200 South Sacramento. So those are great community partners that we work with. So our Lawndale Christian Health Center actually has 6 health centers spread throughout the west side, including East and West Garfield Park, North Lawndale, and also into Little Village. So those are kind of some of the Lawndale Christian Health sites. And so that's just kind of some background information, Alderman, a little bit about some of the epidemiology and some of the statistics about what's been going on with overdoses related to heroin and fentanyl. Now, you had mentioned fentanyl as part of the overdose issue at Chicago and Homan, and indeed, that probably is the case. What people are saying, well, what is this fentanyl? You know, we've heard about heroin for a long time. Heroin's been on the west side for a long time. What about this fentanyl? And fentanyl is a synthetic. It's made in the laboratory. Now, we know that heroin comes from the poppies, right? So it's grown in different places, and it's from the poppies, and it's shipped, you know, unfortunately, it makes its way probably through Mexico into the west side here. But fentanyl is made in a laboratory. A lot of the fentanyl is made in a laboratory into a powder from China or from Mexico, and somehow ends up here on our west side communities. So fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than heroin, 50 times. So that's why even if there's just a little bit of fentanyl in the heroin that somebody may have, that can really cause an overdose. They may go to where they get their supply of heroin and think that they're getting the same thing, but the problem is that it may be contaminated with something like fentanyl. They use the heroin like they would usually use it, and it would just overwhelm them with an overdose. An overdose of heroin or fentanyl really does a few things, and the most important thing is that it really slows down the person's breathing. And then they become unconscious, and you're not able to arouse them. And when a person stops breathing, then, well, you know, then it leads to, you know, that not enough oxygen's getting to the brain, not enough oxygen's getting to the heart, and that's how a person actually dies of an overdose, unfortunately.
So Doc, I appreciate all of that. For a lot of the families out here who have loved ones that may be addicted to drugs, these things really worry us, right? When these things were starting to happen, I actually was worried because I have a sister that's addicted to drugs. She's 50 years old. Well, she'll be 50 in this month, and she's been on drugs for almost 35 years, right? And we were always worried about her. Whenever this stuff happened, you worry about your family members. I know a lot of folks are. Coincidentally, right after I left you all's meeting that weekend, my sister had some fentanyl. She OD'd. But she got hers out south. She OD'd out south. And we went to the hospital to see her. And she was waking up, and you know, we went to see her that morning. They got her at 9 o'clock that night. We saw her at 9 o'clock that morning. We found out, we immediately went there. It was like she was still high when we went to see her. And she told us that she just took a little pinch of it, and it knocked her out, and she OD'd. And she was still high 12 hours later off of this stuff. That's how strong it was. And it really worried us. Of course, you know, we do everything we can to try to get her to help and take care of herself. So a lot of family members really worry about their family members when things like this happen. One of the other profound things that I found at your meeting is that what you're getting ready to talk about now, that there are things that family members can have or people in the public can have to help someone if they go through an overdose. Can you tell us about those things?
Sure, Alderman, and thanks for bringing that up. I'm sorry that your family went through that.
She's fine. We were scared to
okay.
death, though. We were afraid to death. Me and all my sisters and my mom went. We were afraid. But thank you. She's fine now. Unfortunately, she's still getting high, but she's fine. She's not OD'd, so thank God she's still alive.
I'm glad you brought that up, and this is part of the message of hope that we're bringing today. Is that we're going to be talking a little bit more in terms of some treatment aspects a little bit later, but one of the things that we can do is respond to these overdoses. We've been kind of talking about overdoses, and you kind of mentioned, well, what can families do? What can family members actually do if somebody in their family is still using heroin or still in danger for an overdose? And this slide that I'm showing right now is really talking about a medicine that is like an antidote to the overdose. It's something that we can give to a person to reverse the overdose, to bring them back. And that medicine is called naloxone. And it comes in different forms. You can see this on the left-hand side. It does come in an injectable form, and that's kind of what some of the police and fire department use. You can also get that from Chicago Recovery Alliance free. But a lot of my patients, they actually prefer the nasal part because they don't want to be fumbling with a needle. It's an emergency type of a situation, and they may not be medical type people. So what we do is we do prescribe this medicine that's called naloxone or Narcan as a nasal spray. So if a person, and we do prescribe it to family members. So if somebody in the family is still unfortunately maybe using heroin and in danger for an overdose, I have given prescriptions, or people and family members have had this and have been able to give it to their family members who had an overdose right in their house and to bring them back. So I've had that quite a few times. Even some of my patients have actually given it to other people. I had a patient yesterday, actually, and I said, well, do you need your Narcan? He says, yeah. And I said, oh, so you used it to save somebody's life? And he said, yeah. Well, how many times have you done that? Oh, 4 or 5 times. So just being on the west side and being around in the neighborhood, he's been able to use this medicine and save 4 or 5 people from an overdose. Now, how does this actually work? Well, an overdose happens when, like I said, if they kind of stop breathing. So this is somebody who's usually down on the ground and unresponsive. You can't wake them up. You're trying to wake them up, and you just can't wake them up. You kind of shake them, or you kind of try to rub their sternum and try to wake them up, and they're not waking up. And then you may also notice that their breathing is very, very slow. The lips may turn blue, or their fingers may turn blue a little bit. And then sometimes around them, you can kind of ask people, well, what's going on? And people may say, well, they just used heroin or something like that. In that particular case, then you pretty much know that they've had an overdose. Now, other things can be happening, like a heart attack. You might need to do your, standby CPR and things like that. But generally on the west side, you cannot hurt anybody by giving this. You can't, even if they have having a heart attack, if you give the medication to try to bring them back, you're not going to hurt them. And this can really save a person's life. I've done it twice myself. One is in our waiting room, and one was at 13th and Pulaski. There's a guy who was down on the street, and we were able to bring him back. You always call 911. They always have to go by ambulance to the hospital because they may need more, especially with fentanyl. Sometimes they may need several doses of this, and it only lasts perhaps 20 or 30 minutes. So they will have to be observed in the hospital emergency room or even admitted for a period of time. So we can't just say, oh, we gave it to Uncle Joe at home and now he's all good to go. He has to go to the hospital and do 911.
So Doc, could I get a bunch of those to have in my office?
Yes.
And do I have to pay for it?
It is covered with insurance. And you don't have to have like a heroin problem to get a prescription either. And actually, you don't even need a prescription. The Illinois Department of Public Health has issued a standing order. And you could go to a major Walgreens, like a Walgreens at Madison and Western, for example, and say, you know what, I would like some Narcan. And they have a standing order, and they could give it to you. And they could run it through your insurance, and your insurance would pay for it.
So what about folks who don't have insurance?
If they don't have insurance, then there are other ways that we can do it. Often, if you work with your doctor, sometimes there are plans, you can get it from the company. You can also get the injectable from Chicago Recovery Alliance. So if a person has to pay for it, it's about $70 for 2 of these.
Okay, so I know Chicago Recovery Alliance, because they were at the meeting too.
That's right.
Right? And they said they give it out for free.
That's right.
Right? So people can go there and get them for free.
They can go and get that for free. Again, that's the injectable one. And
so they only have the injectable one,
They only have the
injectable
ones for free. They don't have the nasal ones yet.
Yeah.
So what we are working on, and that's in terms of resources, Alderman. Mm-hmm. So what we're working on with you, with Representative Ford, with Congressman Davis, and community partners like the Salvation Army and other large community partners to try to get more resources so we have this available.
Yeah.
So we're working with Salvation Army, and hopefully this summer we'll be able to have some donations of this.
Right. So one of the things that I like to do and I will do is talk to the Chicago Department of Health.
Right.
and see if every alderman can have some at their office.
I think that
if
would
we
be
can have
great.
some at our office, and somebody knows somebody that happened in the area, they call us, maybe we can get it to them, maybe we can save somebody's life.
You know, I would really, I would love it to see this in every City of Chicago
Department, every office, right.
in the library, at 10 South Kedzie.
I agree with you. I agree.
Especially in the heavily affected areas, which we are. So that would be great.
I may introduce a resolution to do that,
that would be
in
great.
the city council because it's necessary.
Yes.
I mean, people are dying and they don't have to,
Yes.
right?
Right.
I mean, if we could save somebody's life, I think we need to do it.
Absolutely.
One thing that I would like to bring up is sometimes people will say, well, this just affects drug addicts and let them kill themselves. And that just tears my heart apart because I think we don't realize that those drug addicts are somebody's child, somebody's father, somebody's brother.
That's right.
And they
Somebody's
are
sister.
truly,
Right.
right, they are, you know, a creation of God, and God loves them very,
Amen.
very much.
Amen.
And there is hope for them.
That's right.
There is a future for them. There is a possibility for them. And I think that we need to realize if we can make a difference in their lives, then there is just a tremendous future. And I am actually going to turn it over to my sister here because she is a beautiful example of that, and you can tell your story now or later.
Well, let
The
the
doctor,
doc finish
yeah,
up.
he got some more.
Switch slides.
Yeah.
He got some
Go
more.
ahead and finish up, Doctor.
Yeah,
We'll
I
go
just
to
have
the
a
other
couple
lady.
more slides because we kind of were talking, Alderman, about, you know, an overdose.
And we're going to have to speed it up.
So what we can say is there's treatment. Okay, we've heard of methadone clinics in the past, and there are other types of good treatment. There's good treatment through counseling at Salvation Army and other places. But what I'd like to point out in this slide is what they call MAT, or medication-assisted treatment. What that includes is behavioral therapy, like counseling, and also medications. Medications would include methadone, buprenorphine, or naltrexone. And the next slide that's going to be shown is a picture of the buprenorphine. There are different types of buprenorphine there. But this is an important thing to talk about because there are lots of things that we can do for folks. People who are taking medication along with their counseling just seem to do better, you know, because what the medication does is it helps them with withdrawal so they don't get sick. It also helps them with their cravings. And then it also helps to keep them in treatment. They use less heroin. They're less involved with the criminal justice system. So there are lots of studies really that shows that this has worked. We've known about methadone for a long time, and it does really help some people. But what's different now is now we can also prescribe something like buprenorphine from our doctor's office. That's something we cannot prescribe. I cannot prescribe methadone from the office, but I can prescribe buprenorphine. And along with our counseling, and along with all these other supports that you see on the slide, including 12-step methods, counseling, urine testing, you know, we need everything. We need all the treatment that we can. This is the best that we have right now. If you remember early on the HIV epidemic, we didn't have a whole lot of medicine, but now we have lots of medicine. I still feel like we're early in this opioid overdose epidemic. How we treat things in 5 or 10 years may be a little bit different than what we treat now, but this is what we have, and it is very helpful for many of our patients. I've started about 80 patients on medication-assisted treatment, and I have some incredible stories of people reuniting with their families and doing much better.
So, Doc, I hope that we can get numbers and information of how to contact your office and also the other organization that's giving them out for free, so that folks can take advantage of this to be able to help people if something happened to them.
Sure, there is.
Is there another slide, or are you
I
done?
just have one other slide that I think is really important. This other slide is really talking about language. Because one thing that we've really learned is, like Major Nancy was saying, that there's such a stigma involved with people who have a problem with heroin. And what we've really learned is we really need to change how we talk about this. So language matters, and what we really say is that we really don't call a person a heroin addict anymore, okay? We've really kind of switched our wording to saying, well, this is a person with an opioid use disorder. We kind of use person first type of language. We don't call these folks AIDS patients anymore. This is a person with HIV, or a person living with HIV. So a similar type of thing. Rather than heroin addict, we say a person with opioid use disorder. Rather than a substance abuser, we are not really using the word abuse anymore. We're really saying that they have a substance use disorder. We don't really call people dirty or clean anymore. We really say what the urine is positive for. And so we don't really say staying clean. We talk about maintaining recovery. So it's just a little bit of different language, and people say, well, you're just being politically correct or something like that. But what we really hear from our patients is that language matters.
Right.
People don't want to be stigmatized. People have to realize that this is a brain disorder. This is a brain disease that really deserves treatment, deserves our love, it deserves our respect, and we really have to use language that really helps people to get into treatment and not keep them away from treatment.
Yeah, and from what I understand, opioids is a physical and a mental disorder.
Correct.
So it's a physically addiction and a mental addiction. So if you don't get it, you're in pain, you hurt, like a lot of stuff, you have to have it. So that's the physical part of it, but also it's a mental challenge for folks. So it's not that easy to get off of.
It isn't,
it's
and it
very
can take
hard.
some years.
It can take years. So it's hard for some folks. It's harder for some people than it is for others.
That's correct.
Right.
But there are chronic brain changes. You're exactly right, Alderman.
So we appreciate you, Doc. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing this with us. And if you can help me to draft this resolution, I appreciate it.
Sure.
So that I can introduce it.
Yeah, we'd be willing to
I really
help out.
appreciate it. So Suzette.
Hi.
Hi. So why don't you tell us about you and your organization? Then we can go to the Salvation Army.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here, Alderman Burnett. And my name is Suzanne Sellers, founder and executive director of Families Organizing for Child Welfare Justice. And I created my organization to be a strength for families, something that I did not have during my situation. I have a past history with substance use disorder. I'm 21 years sober today.
Praise
yes,
God.
But there was a time where I struggled with substances. We see now here in 2019 and in the past couple of years, since about 2016, a rising increase of this opioid epidemic in our nation, and especially here on the West Side. I came through the crack epidemic of the 1990s, and as a result of the mistreatment, the wrong usage of language, the stigma, and different things associated with this country's systems, child welfare system, juvenile justice system, criminal justice, I lost custody of my children, and my parental rights were subsequently terminated. What I don't want to see happen is the same thing that happened during the crack epidemic. Not enough treatment resources available, not enough understanding of the medical part of the substance use disorder, not enough compassion, not enough, like Major Nancy mentioned a few minutes ago, not enough embracing the person who is suffering with the substance abuse disorder, because that person comes from a family, that person comes from a community. And when one person in a community is devastated with any kind of illness, it affects everyone around them. And so what I'd like to see, and what I'm striving to do through my organization, is to walk alongside people who have substance use disorder, to help them not only to overcome the substance use disorder, tell them the path that I took and the things that it took for me to get to where I am, but to also help them in their child welfare situations.
So you pretty much help the whole family.
Yes.
So a lot of folks don't understand, just like myself, right? I've raised many of my sister's children, right? Because of some of the challenges that they may have, and that's what family's for. And other family members have raised them too. We all share in helping to raise the kids of family members who may be, who may have a disorder, a drug disorder, and it affects the whole family.
Absolutely.
Right? So it affects those kids, it affects the parents, it affects the other siblings who may be helping out, and families need that support, right?
Families need the support. My organization and what I've done personally in the lives of people in my family, because I'm not the only one in my family who has ever suffered from substance use disorder. Grab those children, help those children, and don't judge or negate their parent
That's
who is
right.
suffering with the substance use disorder. Instead of tearing that parent down, help the children while at the same time help the parent get the help that they need. I would have been sober. I'm 21 years sober, but I might have 25 years sober. I might not have ever used drugs if I had the community resources available to me at the time, the things that I needed in order to not get on drugs in the first place, and when I got on drugs, to quickly remedy my illness. And that is why I am so passionate about helping out in this opioid crisis, because I am a living witness that people do recover.
So tell me, so I understand from your testimony when the congressman and the state rep had the meeting and we were all there, you told about how you had a drug disorder, how you came out of it,
Yes.
and then how you moved back and got your life on track and advanced yourself further than where you were. Tell us about where you've been and where you come from and where you are today.
Absolutely. I'm born and raised in Chicago, South Side, but I love my West Side. I love the city of Chicago. I'll be 51 years old June 16th, Father's Day, and I'm born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and I've never lived anywhere else but Illinois. So I love my city. However, there are things in certain communities, including the one where I was raised in, where we don't have the same resources, we don't have the same opportunities that other communities have. And since I was growing up in that type of community, I come from a family who didn't have the resources they need. I fell into experimental drug usage, which escalated to substance use disorder. I got involved with the child welfare system. Unfortunately, when a call was made saying that I was not providing adequate care for my daughter. I had a daughter at the time, and I used to take her to the home of families and friends. Thank you, Alderman Burnett, for caring for your sister's children, because we need that. I needed people to care for my children when I would get the hanks on me and wanted to go out on a drug binge. My daughter was not neglected. She was not abused. She was well cared for at the family member's home. She was well cared for by me at my home when I wasn't high. But the child welfare system, when they received the call saying I was taking her to different family members and friends' house, they didn't agree. They took custody of her. I wanted to be sober. I did not want to use drugs. I had long before realized, before that call was made, I had long ago realized that my experimenting with drugs had escalated to a full-blown addiction and illness, and I didn't want that for myself. So I asked the caseworkers for help, and I don't know if it was lack of funding for them or lack of resources, but I wasn't able to get the help I needed from DCFS. They mandated me through a safety plan to do X, Y, Z, but they didn't provide the adequate resources and appropriate and timely resources I needed to meet those mandates. So my case kept going, and I kept using drugs as a result of not getting what I needed to stop, even though I wanted to stop. Eventually, by the grace of God, I was able to I asked a friend in a crack house, sitting down using crack with a bunch of people. I just blurted out, do you all know where to go? Have anybody in this room ever had long-term treatment before? And if so, tell me where you went. And somebody said, I went to a place before, and this is how you go sign up for the bed. The next day, I went and signed up for that bed. And it took about 2 or 3 months for the people to call me for the bed because, like I said, lack of available resources in our community. But when a bed was available, I went to that place. It was a 90-day, long-term, intensive residential drug treatment. I graduated from there after 90 days and went to a 2-year residential recovery home, which is hardly even heard of now. But I went there, and I've been sober ever since. Will be 22 years sober in September. Since then, in the 22 years, that I've been sober. I've been, by the grace of God, able to accomplish many things, 3 master's degrees.
Praise the Lord, praise the
Yes,
Lord.
3 master's degrees, competitive universities. I am a homeowner, 20-year career in procurement. I'm founder and executive director of a not-for-profit. I am president and CEO of a for-profit consulting firm. But my biggest accomplishment and biggest thing that I am blessed with is to have reunited with my children. Although my rights were terminated, when I had 2 years sober, my rights were still terminated. My kids came back to me on their own volition when they each turned 18 years of age. My daughter turned 18 years old in 2011, and my son, who I had in my addiction as well, he turned 18 in 2013. They both came back to me, and we have a loving relationship today.
Praise God.
Yes, we're not legally related though. However, because of the termination of parental rights, it strips legal rights forever.
But you're naturally related.
But we are blood related.
That's right.
We are love related.
God
and
related.
we are God related.
That's
and
right.
that can never be taken away.
That's right.
So I want to help people. That's why I started my not-for-profit. And even before I started my not-for-profit, I want to help people, especially women, especially black women in urban communities who are using drugs, to get off the drugs, walk with them while they're on it, because I understand what they're going through. I've been there. I know how hard it is. I know why they started using. I know what they're doing while they're using. The other factors that come into play other than just drugs, what you got to do to get the drugs, what you got to put up with while you high. I know all of that. I walk with them and say, it's a better way, sis, and here is my life as living proof. And then once they get sober, help them to get those kids back. Those kids need you.
That's right.
I dropped my son off at a friend's house this morning, and I see my children are doing well, praise God. I love them. They're very smart and they're good people, good kids. Well, they adults, my son 23 and my daughter 26, but they still my babies. Good kids, but I see every day what them not being raised in my home did to them. And I know that even though they are spectacular men and women now, how much better they would have been had they been with mama. And I don't want to see no other child have to go through that. You never get over that. Yeah. I'll never get over it, and they'll never get over it. And so let's bring our communities back together. We already have enough separation of our families because of other factors.
Amen.
You know.
So, well, thank God for you. Thank God for what you're doing for people, and thank God for what He's done for you.
Yes.
You know, and I think your testimony just shows that you can't look at a person for what they are. Mm-hmm. You have to look at them for what they can be.
That's right.
And if we start looking at everyone for what they can be, mm-hmm. right, we will have hope and give them hope that they can change.
Exactly.
But if we just keep looking at them for the mistakes that they've made or the challenges that they have right now,
yes.
we don't help them.
Yes, sir.
We have to look at them. We have to believe that they can do better. And then once we start thinking that they can do better, we can help them feel like they can do better. Because a lot of it, I think, some of it has to do with self-esteem.
Absolutely.
Right? And when we keep encouraging low self-esteem to people, you know, it just...
keeps them on
they keep going down. We got to boost them up and keep telling them they can do better. And that's what we try to do. Mm-hmm. That's why we had a clean and sober stepper set every month, and try to encourage the guys and let them encourage each other, see each other doing well. That way they see other people doing good who've been through this, then they want to do good. They can believe that they can do good also. And I want to thank Major Nancy Powers from the Salvation Army. And majors at the Salvation Army, you all are like reverends, ministers.
We're ordained ministers.
Ordained ministers, okay, because y'all not carrying guns and y'all not fighting, because I know y'all soldiers.
What kind
of
army
That's
is it?
Right. So
we are at
army
war.
For the Lord, right?
We are at war against sin.
Okay.
And I assure you it is quite a battle.
I can imagine.
But we have a pretty good commander-in-chief, I might point out, and that the good Lord is leading us. Here, I am so blessed to be in this community because truly that's where God wants us, to be located literally a block away from some of the biggest drug areas. The Salvation Army wants to be here. We chose this location because we have something to offer. We have something for every level of person involved. Our hope is to grab the kids before they've ever been involved. We have children's programs. Every night of the week, a child can come here for dinner. They don't have to be hungry. We have after-school programs. They can come and play basketball. They can go in the computer lab. They can learn coding. They can learn video production. Wouldn't it be nice if your video people got involved? But they can learn free music lessons, brass instruments, guitars, drums, keyboard. They can learn sound and lighting. They can do any kind of sport. Some days we just sit and play board games. But we have one-on-one time with these kids to let them know that they're loved and wanted and cared about.
So you actually help to raise some of the kids whose parents may be addicted to drugs right now.
We do, and many of our kids, we know that's the situation. The schools tell us that third graders, 50% of them are responsible for the care of their family. And so we started doing cooking classes with third graders and up, so that we'll teach them how to make a nutritious meal, and then we'll give them the groceries to go home and make that meal for their family at home. And we do some fun things in the kitchen as well, but we try and give them the tools they need to make a difference in their own home. We have a food pantry, so families do not need to be hungry. We have Starbucks. You can come in my front door any time of day, and there's a cooler sitting there, and you can get a wonderful sandwich or a salad or a yogurt, something healthy to have. But more important,
You said you had Starbucks?
I did.
So I don't have to go to Starbucks anymore?
You can support any place within your district, but if you can't support your local business, yes, you can come here because they are very generous. But we have computer classes that teach skills so people can get jobs. We have an employment program to help people learn how to become employable. And then we have a number of employers who work with us. I can call and say I have well over 40 employers that I can actually call and say, I have somebody interested in the type of work you do, would you take them? I pay their first 8 weeks of salary. After that, if they've done a good job, they take them on and they become their employee, but my caseworker follows them for 6 months to help them. And because of that, they might take somebody they might not have otherwise. But we have a phenomenal success rate on that. Our treatment program right here, folks can come in for a variety of levels. They can come in for an inpatient residential treatment, and they can graduate to a halfway house and then a longer term stay. So someone could stay in this facility for 4 to 5 years. Now, after their treatment program, the residential, they're going to go out and they're going to work and they're going to pay program fees. But we're going to help them get a job to be able to do that. We partner with Lawndale Christian and with Pilsen that they can get their medical needs taken care of. So our hope is to work that they can do that. But we also will have a health fair here this summer that kids can get all their immunizations. They can get their dental checkup. They can get hearing and vision and all their school supplies. And I know you do that as well. But we want to be holistic in our approach to families. 80% of the men in our treatment program report that their first drugs came from their family. Their parents primarily, but sometimes a brother or somebody. And it happened between the ages usually of 8 to 13. What can we do to impact that statistic. Why are they involved? Many of them, their parents were selling drugs and they wanted the child to run drugs somewhere and be their transportation. Is it money? Is it poverty that drove them to that? Well, come here and get your food. Don't have to run your kids making drug sales. Is it rent assistance and utility assistance and clothing? We can help you with that here. Let us have a shot to do that. What other needs? And here's where I want to talk to your viewers, because it isn't that family's problem. It isn't the Salvation Army's problem. It is the community's problem.
It's all of our problem.
And we have to work together. You know, what's going on with your neighbor next door? Do you see kids that aren't dressed for the weather? Do you see kids that are hungry? Do you see kids down the block that are just hanging and getting into trouble? What can you do? You know, make your house the place to go. If you can't bake cookies, buy a bag of Oreos and invite them in. Teach them to play gin rummy or checkers or something, but be available to talk to those kids. Hang on your front porch and invite them so that they have an adult that cares. One person in their life they can sit and talk to. One person that actually knows whether they got home after school or not. Be the neighbor that cares about them, because maybe they don't have a family member that will take them in after time.
So, Major, you all also have an area over here that you worked with the city on. It used to be 10 South Kesey. You built a building that take in homeless families that may be displaced for whatever reason, whether they lost their home for whatever reason or a fire happened or whatever the case may be. You house women and children at that place. You want to speak about that?
The Shield of Hope is located on Christiana also. It's 1 year old, so it's a beautiful building. Families that are homeless can come here 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Whenever they find themselves homeless, come and knock on the door. They come in, they're assessed for what the situation is, what they need to be housed. They may be sent to a shelter, they may be helped into permanent housing. Some families have family in Texas that would happily take them in, but they can't get there. So we would help them get back to their family, or we will help them pay first month's rent to get into a place. Whatever it takes, we will help them get stabilized and back in. They can stay right there. We have about housing for 70 people right in that facility. They get what looks like a hotel room. It's a room with beds and couches and bathrooms, etc.
And it's a room for the whole family.
For the whole family.
So you don't have the family mixed with a whole bunch of other families. They have their own room, own door, own lock,
bathroom.
own bathroom, so their kids don't have to be exposed to a whole bunch of other people. So
Right.
it's a safe environment for the families.
Right.
And that could be a family where maybe the father is addicted to drugs or whatever, or the mother is addicted to drugs, and there's a teenage daughter or older child that's taking care of the rest of the family that can stay there. Yeah.
They are allowed to come no matter what the condition is. And in the assessment, if one of the parents or older children need help, we'll help them get it.
Praise God. Now, also, I know we're working with you. There's some city lots still available on Christiana, and I know the Salvation Army want to do permanent housing for some of those families that may be there, so they can transition to get a permanent home. And
somehow the city has odd lots, and we have odd lots. And if we just switch them around a little, we'll get 3 lots together, and you'll get 3 lots together.
That's right.
It's like a little bit of
a marriage,
Jenga
a marriage made in heaven, right? So first of all, I want to commend the Salvation Army for donating that space to the city of Chicago, having that building built for the city of Chicago, and helping us with our folks, with the people in the city of Chicago. But also, we want to thank you all for everything else that you all are doing. It's such a blessing to have you. It just warmed my heart when you all wanted to move over here. I mean, to me, this was the best thing that I've done in this neighborhood, was to help to have this Salvation Army built in this neighborhood, because you're so holistic, and you have everything for the community, and you don't even mention the fact that your guys go out every day on buses and vans, look for the folks who are either alcoholics or drug addicts, give them coffee, give them full meals, and you talk to them to try to get them off of drugs.
Last week alone, we took 30 people off the street.
Every day, every day. So that's a blessing.
Yes.
And I think the other thing that needs to be recognized is that you're not getting the government funds to do all these things. So where your money come from? I know it comes from heaven, but where do it go through when it comes from heaven?
We heavily depend on private donations.
Private donations.
If it weren't for, those little red kettles you see, certainly make a huge difference. But the private checks are well over 50% of our budget. People that care about people and use us as their vehicle to serve their neighbors.
So, sometimes I get hated on because I'm very partial to the Salvation Army, because you guys do so much, and I really appreciate you all, and you're very holistic. I've seen several lives changed. When I do the clean and sober step and sets, and your guys come down, right, that's in the treatment center, they come down and mingle and look at everybody dance and everything, and see the people who have been through treatment and gotten clean, and they get encouraged. And I see, it's unfortunate, I see a lot of people that I've known over the years from childhood. But it's encouraging, it's discouraging, and it's encouraging to see that they're getting back on their feet. And then I've seen them be here, then I've seen them transition and get on track and become contributing citizens and get their family back and just blossom, get their weight back and everything. And it's just such a beautiful thing. It's just such a beautiful thing.
Over 80% of the people that go through our program are still sober after a year.
Wow.
Compared to a national average in the teens.
And the thing is, they can come here and get sober and it's free. So that's a blessing.
Yes,
and is it hard to get in?
You walk in at 7 o'clock Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. You walk in and you say, I want treatment. If you have insurance, we can bill insurance. If you don't have insurance, it's free.
Praise God. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. So, ladies and gentlemen, this show is about us helping us.
Yes.
Us helping us, because they are us. Everybody out there is us. We are part of the human family, and we need to help each other. And there's help here. There's help if people are ODing. We want to thank the doctor, Huggett, for coming on and letting us know about those places. Please post the information where they can get that medicine at. And again, I need your help so I can try to get these in all of the city council offices and all of the city facilities. So if people OD, we can have it on hand. Thank you very much, Doctor, for coming on. Suzanne?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Suzanne, I want to thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your willpower. Thank you for your inspiration, man. I mean, 3 master's degrees?
No, masters. MBA, Master of Public Policy from the University of Chicago, and a Master of Arts in Theological Studies.
You went to that expensive school, University of Chicago? You must be a bad girl.
Student loan. Student loan. I got loans, y'all.
Well, praise God.
But yeah, I praise God that the drugs didn't burn all my brain cells out, that I was still able to get through the University of Chicago and 2 other master's degree programs.
So thank God that you're not who you've been.
Yeah.
You are who you are, and you are who you can be.
Absolutely.
Hallelujah.
And others can be like me.
That's right. You're a prime example. You're a testimony. And Major, God bless you. Thank you very much. I must tell the audience, She's one of the best bakers in the city of Chicago.
Is she? Okay.
This lady can make some cakes, boy.
You
I'm gonna
let
tell
the
you.
secret
Don't
out.
sleep. She's a baker. She's a baker.
Okay.
But her and her husband is great partners in our community. We are so blessed to have you all in our neighborhood. Thank you very much. Every donation that you get, all of the donations that you get of goods, you share it with the community. We just gave out a whole bunch of things on Mother's Day. You did something at Easter. You just
Father's
constantly
Day's barbecue.
Yeah, so yeah, Father's Day is barbecue coming up. So it's free barbecue here, guys, on Father's Day. Her husband, Burns, he's like, you know, he take real pride in his barbecuing. So come on out and check it out. So we just want to thank you all very much. Thank God for you and the Salvation Army. I want to thank all of you all for coming on to the show. Please, everyone, let's get this medicine and help save lives. God bless you all. Thank you for watching Network 27. I'm Alderman Walter Burnett. See you next month. Thank you.